I got this Leica Q2 Monochrome about 3 months ago, and I love it. But what led me to this engineering marvel was this, which is kind of the opposite. This is the TT Artisan 250mm f5.6. And it's not quite fair to call it the opposite of an engineering marvel, but it's definitely a lens with a lot of character, which is probably a term someone would use, for example, when writing an ad online for a crappy second-hand chair. Before I continue, I've made the chapters here down below, so if you find me rambling or getting lost in details, you can always skip ahead. Also, full disclosure, all of this gear is my own and no one has paid me for this video. Like many photographers, I struggle to control my IPS, and like many photographers, I also spend a lot of time looking at gear on, for example, YouTube. Due to this odd creation, a 250mm mirror lens that popped up on YouTube. I was certain I had to have it, and I got it about a year ago, but after playing around with it a bit, I didn't use it much, but I'll get back to it in a moment. I'm certain I'm not the only photographer that has made the mistake of bringing way too much gear, simply because I wanted to keep my options open. I would stuff the 70-liter f-stop bag with gear and accessory, and then I would spend a lot of time contemplating my next setup. Time I could have spent contemplating my next photo. Then later, when I got a bit more sensible, or perhaps a little less unsensible, I would bring a smaller bag with only one camera and perhaps 2 or 3 lenses. That can work in many situations, for example when photographing sport or cultural events. But for street photography, it often left me a bit stressed still and frustrated when I couldn't decide what setup to use. That's when I started bringing only one camera and one lens to my street photography adventures. It might sound weird, but I enjoyed delving into a specific setup, and I like not having to worry about choosing. And now we're back at the 250mm mirror lens. I photographed with it in both Odense and Aarhus, and I got a lot of nice shots. One day I went to Copenhagen to spend an entire day with only this lens and a camera. I got more nice photos, and during the day I also passed the Leica store in Copenhagen. The store has been there for more than 3 years now, but I had never visited before. So I was curious and I went in. I quickly got talking with Lucan, the store manager in the Leica store Copenhagen. We talked about my photography and mainly sport and culture with my Sony, but also in my interest in getting more into street photography and slowing down and keeping it simple. I had, of course, already watched a lot of videos about Leica and especially the Leica Q2 Monochrome on this platform. And Lucan and I talked about that camera specifically. I left my contact details, and not long after, I got an email from Lucan. He had just gotten a used Q2 Monochrome back as a part of a trade-in and offered it to me. It was only a few months old and it had a shutter count of, I think, 30. And it was like brand new. But I could get it about 25% cheaper than a new Q2 Monochrome. I had already looked at a used one on MPB, but buying from a Leica store would give me a longer guarantee and the same introduction as if I had purchased a new Leica. It didn't take long for me to decide, and I accepted the offer. Leica has an official platform for pre-owned and vintage products named the Leica Classic Marketplace. It's definitely worth checking out, and I'll link to it down below. Well, to make a short story long, this is all what led me to this. But just before we get to the Leica, would I recommend the TT Artisan 250mm f5.6 mirror lens? Sure. If you can afford the 300-ish euros and like to experiment a bit, it's a fun lens, and I'll be keeping this. It's quite unique in harsh light and during golden hour, or in the special light from the low-hanging winter sun here in Scandinavia. But now, finally to this, the Leica Q2 Monochrome. This is not a new model, and I know I'm late to the party as usual, But having spent about a quarter of a year with this camera, I can safely say that I'm still very pleased with it. The original Leica Q was announced in the summer of 2015, and the Leica Q2 in the spring of 2019. The Leica Q2 Monochrome was launched by the end of 2020, so the model is close to 5 years old by now. The Q2 was succeeded by a Q3 in 2023, and also a Q3 with a 43mm lens in 2024. But the Q3 isn't available as a monochrome. A new Leica Q2 Monochrome is about 6,000 euros here in Denmark, but a Samilux 28mm lens, which is the one on the Q2 Monochrome, is in itself about 1,500 euros more than the Leica Q2 Monochrome. Also, the Q3 with the 28mm Samilux and the Q3 43 with the APO Samicron are both cheaper than the lenses themselves. So you do actually get good value when buying one of the Leica Q cameras. This summer I took my monochrome camera with me on vacation to the island of Bornholm in the Baltic Sea. That's the island very close to where the underwater gas pipelines were blown up about 3 years ago. It's also been in Copenhagen a couple of times and other places, and I brought it with me into nature for just walking. On Bornholm I got this shot. I asked for permission, and the gentleman tried his best to keep up his grumpy appearance, but he wasn't quite able to. In Copenhagen, I've gotten a lot of photos of people, and the fairly wide lens forces me to interact with most people if I want to photograph them. But I like to challenge myself like that. There's a lot of nature here where I live, so I have also brought the Q2 Monochrome with me on walks numerous times by now. The past couple of weeks we have had very calm weather and beautiful misty mornings. So I've been a bit obsessed with capturing rays of light. When I'm photographing outside in bright conditions, I use this red filter from Case. It's magnetic, so I can easily put it on and take it off again, and it helps me get more contrasty images in bright conditions. One of the mistakes I made in the beginning with the monochrome camera was not exposing correctly in bright light. Some of my images turned out too dull, or the highlights were blown out and I couldn't recover them. In most street photography, exposure bracketing is not an option. The Leica Q2 Monochrome has a dynamic range of 13 stops at ISO 200. But it also has a remarkable ability to capture details in the shadows. Now I consequently underexpose between 1 and 2 stops in bright conditions, and I'm able to recover a lot of details from the shadows, and I don't blow out the highlights. Look at this image. It was taken in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the day, without a cloud in the sky, directly into the sun. It's underexposed by 2 stops, and I've got my Case red filter on. I wasn't going for an award-winning photo, but I did it as a test. First, it looks like a silhouette of a lamp, but look at the details I'm able to recover. The spider's web is crystal clear, and the leaves as well. It's possible to recover an insane amount of details from the shadows with this camera, and you can underexpose a lot without getting into trouble. I don't know if it has to do with the lack of a color filter, the lens, or something entirely different. And I don't put much thought into the technology, just the possibilities. I don't think nature photography will ever be a big thing for me. But I do like to experiment with some of the contrasts you can find in landscapes and in the sky. But I will probably mostly focus on urban environments, people, and culture. With the darker season coming up, I really look forward to using the camera in low light conditions and also bringing it to indoor cultural events. One of the things that has really surprised me are some of the statistics on my website. It's not a very busy place, only between 400 and 600 page views a month, depending on how much effort I put into my social media, which admittedly hasn't been that much. My goal is to upload at least a video a month, but we'll see if I ever get there. However, look at this. I took this screenshot a couple of days ago and it astonished me somewhat. I've got over 25% more people looking at the monochrome page on my site than the other pages. This is my first video about my monochrome camera and the pictures, but for some reason they attract more interest. I'm completely unable to objectively evaluate my photos, but I do think some of the sports photos are pretty good. There's more of them on my website and they're replaced more often. In my mind, the sports page ought to be more visited, but for some reason it's not, and I really don't understand why. But I am thankful for the interest in my monochrome pictures. I got this nice and beautiful leather neck strap with the camera. I guess it's just a matter of preference, but I don't like wearing the camera like this in front of me. And I did find that I needed to pinch it when carrying it without any accessories. Leica does have a protective case with a built-in hand grip for the Q3, but not for the Q2. They do have a separate hand grip for the Q2, but I prefer the combination. So I bought a millicase protective case with a built-in hand grip and a Leica wrist strap that I shortened and modified. And now I find it very comfortable to carry like this for long periods at a time. I've already talked a lot and there's no reason to go through all the specifications in detail. I'll leave them on the screen for a moment and you can pause if you want to have a closer look. The camera has autofocus and face eye detection. I didn't have all that high expectations. There are many various reviews online, but I've only been pleasantly surprised. I am of course working at a much slower pace with the Q2 Monochrome compared to photographing sports, but I have found the autofocus and face eye detection very usable. I like the 28mm focal length for street photography. I can capture a wide field of view in urban environments and of people from a bit of a distance. But for close-up portrait photography, the subjects can get a bit distorted. If you're into that, it's fine, but perhaps it would be worth considering the Q343 instead. It's also an option to get the Leica M11 monochrome with both a 28 and a 50mm f1.4 Summilux lens, but it will set you back around 22,000 euros. My entire goal with getting this camera was to simplify things and slow down. I have definitely obtained both, and I still have the possibility to produce interesting, high-quality images. I love strolling around with this camera, looking at possible motifs and thinking about light and contrast. It's much more relaxing than being at an event with a 120 frames per second high-speed sports camera, even though I like that kind of photography too. The shutter count on the camera is still only about 600, and now I'm just as often not taking a photo as I am taking one, and I'm spending time contemplating each photo. I'm not sure where I will end up as a photographer, and I really don't worry much about it anyway. But I'm enjoying the journey, and this, the Leica Q2 Monochrome, will definitely be a pleasant companion. There'll surely be more videos about this camera coming up. I need to experiment much more with light and contrast, and of course, interesting subjects and surroundings. As usual, I've saved a few of my top picks till the end of this video, and if you stick around just a little bit longer, you will be able to see them. Please consider hitting the like button and perhaps subscribe as well. See you around.